Welcome. I'm Karenann McDonald, and I want to thank you. We're going to have a really interesting and exciting talk. And with me is Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So if you need him, he's at richardallenmiller.com. And for those of you that don't know my friend Rick, who's, we like to call Doc Ram in the field, he's got a wonderful background, amazing scientist. He's had an extensive career. He has pioneered and developed so much in farming and agriculture and in metaphysics, and he's trained the Navy SEALs, and I could go on and on and on, and even the X-Files is about him, but more importantly, he's got a great heart, and he's a friend of mine. And that's what I care about. So I'm just like sharing you a little conversation. So we have a lot of stuff in common that we like to talk about, and we're going to talk a little bit. This is kind of to give you an idea, as you can go look, because he's written numerous books, and he's got a new thing called The Daily Conspiracy. So if you go to drrichardallenmiller.com, you're going to find a wealth of information. So please go there and subscribe. He's also on Facebook, and you can see us talking. So we're going to talk a little bit today just to let you know about what's going on with Atlas, what we've both heard. We're going to talk a little bit about the singularity, the wide area body network, how they're loose harvesting and taking, our energy off of us. We're going to talk Greenland comes into the play, and so many other things. Pole shift. He's just got a wealth of information because of his extensive background and extensive Navy intelligence clearance. So over to you, Rick.
I don't know quite how to respond to all of that. Where would you like to start? What would you?
Well, okay, let's start. You want to, we started talking a little bit about some things in the background, and we had the pleasure of actually talking with someone else that was in the forces earlier today. So we're kind of delayed here, but we started talking. The first thing he said, what do you know about August the 12th? And I sent you about 2 or 3 things I'd looked at. Now, what I heard, and then I'm going to let you elaborate. So on August the 12th, coming up in 2026, so roughly 6 months from now, 7 months, will be another ellipse, is what I call, but eclipse. I always know that there are people upstairs doing things that make things look kind of strange. So on the last one we had in April, it crossed over part of the continent. We saw weird things show up on radar. There's stuff apparently connected to, other races that came in through this, vacuum that we had. But more importantly, it went over everything that was biblical, like Jerusalem, Salem, Nineveh, all that stuff. But now what they're saying for August the 12th, and I listened to the translation of the Spanish scientist group called La Quinta Columba, which was very well known for their live blood cell microscopy and what was going on in the injections in the last 6 years. But they had an interesting take on August the 12th. And what they said is that they figured this 3 days of darkness was really going to be the next 3 solar eclipses. So there was going to be one in August the 12th of 2026, another one in 2027, and then was going to be, I think it was January the 26th of 2028. And they figured that this 3 days of actual darkness was going to tie into the, literally to this eclipse that we're going to hear. Now, the other thing I've heard, and this is what they felt, is he said, I think this is going to be a trigger point for those people who have been injected. We are going to have a change in magnetics. We are going to have a change in the electrical, the polarity, everything. When this time happens, it allows for alignments, and they could very well activate the first phase of people that have been injected towards the singularity or the transhumanism. That's one. We're also hearing about there's going to be a change in the magnetics, and people are saying, and like you and I have both been on Rex Bear's show, the Leak Project and stuff like that, that there's could be up to 7 seconds that we're going to lose the gravitational field. So I already see that the gravitational field looks like crap. And every time I look at the magnetic sphere, I'm like, thank gosh, someone's got some shields up there. So I want to hear what your thoughts are and what you figure could be happening, and how does this tie into what we're seeing with pole shifts and Betelgeuse and the singularity and what all is going on here? Like, we're having like weather warfare. Phenomenal. Over to you.
We have always had, the 50-year flood and the 100-year flood down here on the Rogue River where I live.
Mm-hmm.
They're like clockwork. Every 50 years it'll do this. Every 100 years it'll do that.
Right.
Good luck with predictions. I studied astrology with Isabel Hickey when I was doing my doctorate at MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that astrology is as valid as astronomy and as valid as cosmobiology, the new directions in where physics is looking at the geometric relationship of celestial bodies on biological processes. Nothing is coincidental in that regard.
Mhm.
It's just how we choose to see and measure it with limitations in man's concepts of space, time, whatever. You know, when we invented space and time as constructs, it created an uncertainty principle because those are not real concepts, they're constructs. It's the way of we chose to look at something,
Right.
and it's limited in our abilities to really actually understand what's going on. In other words, it isn't my physics that makes something real, it's your imagination.
Mhm.
I mean, I know I don't know. We can guess and we can get close, but I don't think there's ever going to be a cigar, which means, I don't think there's ever going to be a theory of everything where we're getting closer and closer to the truth. I don't think that's happening. I
No.
think that we're broadening our constructs to encompass unusual phenomena like ESP and billet reading. They're different.
Okay.
Like astral projection is different than remote viewing. One's inside the circle, the other's outside the circle. One is you, and one is not you. That kind of thing. And that's the limitation that we have in looking at things. And with that said, August 12th may be when the so-called moment of absolute something's different with a pole, magnetic field shift in the pole. What happens every 12,000 years is that the Earth's inner core stops spinning,
Right.
it's spinning in the opposite direction. Now, is that literally happening? Yes, it is, because it's already happened with all the planets except Earth and Mercury. Even the sun has started spinning in the opposite direction. What does that suggest? Well, one of the things that we've always noted was that all our stars are binaries. Very rarely is there a single star. It's always got a twin, just like your brain. You have a right and left brain. Just like a white hole has a black hole. It's a way of looking at things. And when you start looking at things in specific models, it opens doors to the possibilities of what that might imply. And as we open more doors, we get more implications. And we think we're getting closer to the truth when, in fact, I don't think there'll ever be a big theory of everything. We had quantum mechanics, then we went into my concepts of the holographic universe, and now we're moving to the multiverse. Now we're getting closer to the truth of things? No, what we're doing is modernizing our way of choosing to look at something from astrology to astronomy. And each have their limitations in terms of what we understand is going on because of the way we choose to filter the information that we're seeing.
Right.
August 12th has a lot of different symbolism coming up. And my guess is originally we thought, with every 12,000 years, there's a wiggle room of when that's actually going to happen, even with high-end accuracy. It isn't to the day, but, the study I did originally said it was going to happen in 2012. When that didn't happen, and we made movies about that ending, the end of days, then we moved it to 2056. Now it went back down to 2036. Nobody really knows because there's nothing that survives that from a written record point of view. In the study I did, I went back 5 epochs, and this is going to be the 6th epoch. And then we enter into the 7th epoch biblically as they talk about it. Now, what is actually going to happen? I can tell you that there's a volcano off of Crescent City that goes off every 13 years or so.
Right.
And it just went off. And it was quite violent, but it wasn't a big deal yet. When the pole stops, the core of Earth stops spinning, and what happens is all that lava that's down in the center of Earth starts to shake and rumble around, and some of it gets thrown up to the surface, where you have Mount Rainier and Mount Shasta on the west coast now throwing ash this morning again.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean they're going to go off? I think so, but
Probably.
I don't know. You understand? And when
No.
that goes,
but
yeah.
But one of the interesting things here, and I just want to go, it's kind of because Ricardo Delgado, right? Another Richard, right? But he's the director of La Quinta Colombo, which you can see in here. And I put this up on my Facebook and my groups, that this is what he's really thinking, is that this is going to be a massive implementation for those people that have been injected or graphinated through, we'll just say, the stuff up your nose, or through different, other kind of injections and stuff, right? Or pills over the counter, right?
Smoking in a glass pipe, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But, if you have taken some of these things, it's through these inoculations of the graphene base that basically this is going to be what's going to start happening is when this goes into the ECLIPSE, now with the satellites and Starlink to go into the 26 gigahertz into that K-band, that basically it's going to be an intracorporeal activation, and they'll be activated and we'll get radiated. So,
well, there's also the statement that there are too many people in the world, and that the 300 or whatever you want to call the cabals and all the different things would like to reduce our population. That's what COVID was about, in mRNA.
Right.
And you can speculate all you want to, and the bottom line is that's all we're all going to do. Even with my best of physics, we're guessing.
Right.
And so with that said, what do I think is going to happen? I think we're going to have a magnetic pole shift happen, and it will be the beginning of the end. I don't think it's going to happen all at bang and everything's dead in one moment. But I do realize that we've been here before, and Homo neanderthalis was a more evolved species than Homo sapien. It had 3 rings in the DNA, and it's the one that taught humans to come in out of the rain, build fire. So with that said, I think that there's going to be some loss of life because of events occurring, like the Juan de Fuca fault line. That volcano off of Crescent City now,
right,
has a huge magma buildup right now. And when I say that, the next time it goes off, there's going to be a shift in the fault line, or the Juan de Fuca fault line, where everything west on I-5 is gone in 4 hours. And that's our best geography that we've got at this moment. Now, moving to another sidebar on that, here's another thing that's interesting. In 1974, I flew over the Oregon vortex at 15,000 feet in an old PBY with an interferometer. Now, what bends light at 15,000 feet? The only thing we have in our technology library at this point is a mini black hole. And I'm going to suggest that the Earth has a series of mini black holes, what we call the ley lines and the Bermuda Triangle, and some of the other fault things that we don't have anomalies on or explanations on, I believe are in a specific geometry, sacred, that's going to flip and take the Earth into the out of. Now, there'll be survivors.
Okay.
There always has been in the past 5 epochs. But they're put back to the Stone Age, and we're like sugar ants having to start all over again in terms of building our technology up. Okay. Now, my metaphysics says that consciousness is a dream state, which means you're not awake right now. In fact, there are dream states that are more have content of reality, than consciousness does, like lucid dreaming, which means that consciousness is a dream within a dream. And when you go into an altered state, the laws of physics change. That's one of the things I've observed, and why I'm one of the architects now working with knot theory to produce a model that's working related to the multiverse. Good luck with that. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to, I don't know. But what I do know is there is an active movement, both with man and probably above man, like God, that would suggest there are too many people on Earth. What is it? 3 billion, 30 billion people, and they want it down to, 100,000.
500 million.
Yeah.
500 million if you went by the Georgia Guidestones. But
that's because they have repeatedly attempted to reduce the mankind content. It's easier to control a smaller group of people that have nuts. I don't know. What I do know is I'm prepping, because if the grid goes down, a zombie will be a kid from high school when he's hungry and he looks at you like a piece of meat. And that's a so-called 15-minute city.
Right.
And the fact that none of these places, where I live anyway, have just-in-time delivery systems that are going to go to heck. And when I say that, Grants Pass, Rogue River, where I live, I only have food for 3 days minimum. And look what happens when there's even suggestion of something weird going on. What happens to the shelves in the local grocery stores? And what are you going to do when it's gone out 2 weeks and there's nothing to eat? And people start to get panicky. And you think a high school kid's going to care about what you think?
Probably not. One of the things that's funny, one of my friends, Sabrina Wallace, is amazing. She's got her Synergy channel, right? And you were the one that actually basically was the original one that pioneered Synergy and, psionics, right? And when you look at this, and, I started looking about the biofield and start talking about what, we were talking a little bit earlier today about, well, what people say harvesting, loose harvesting, energy, using us as, food source or batteries, call it whatever you want, slave labor. One of the things in here, as she talks very much about, is the biosensors, but how this has been going on as you've been in, you've been retired for a long time, but you're still in there. You've been, in the Navy intelligence and as a scientist and metaphysicist and everything else, is that they've been using these tracking and sensors in the wide area body network for like 50, 70 years. Some of this stuff goes back to the 17 and 1800s. Like when you actually study it, it's like pre-Tesla days. And so when I started looking at how they were tracking people and how this pole shift ties in the whole agenda, as you said, it comes back into wanting to put the transhumanism or the singularity. Now, all these things combined, as you said, we need to focus
on metaphor. It's
metaphor.
Looking at what's about to happen. Doesn't mean it's going to happen like you think it is, but there is going to be some kind of an event. And astrologically, there it is. Astrophysics, the 3-eye atlas going in and whatever that is and what it is not, who knows? Right. There isn't enough scientific knowledge to actually identify it as an alien spacecraft or not. However, it is behaving differently than anything we've ever observed. But realize this is the only third thing in our history of 12,000 years that has entered from outside our solar system. And, our concept of space is such that is Gaia a living thing, an entity, or is it just a piece of rock with a bunch of minerals on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when you start talking about astrology and 3-eye atlas and all the different things that are going on,
right,
you realize this is loud noise trying to make its presence awareness in you. And I would recommend that you treat this as an event that may be slowing down our chances of survival, and that you start thinking in terms of, here's one point if you can grow 40% of the food you consume, you would have a higher likelihood of survival than anyone else, because food, it's like the code I use is 3 minutes for air, 3 days for water, and 3 weeks for food. What's important? Well, your air that you're breathing, obviously. Yeah, that you've only got 3 minutes, and then you got to go to get some air or else. And that might be, fires and things like that where you're not breathing correctly and you have to get something right. And water, well, here in Oregon, we have serpentine soils, which means you don't know if the water's clean or it has arsenic in it.
Well, we've seen enough testing, and I've done not only through my radionics, and you and I both have a love of radionics and radiesthesia, right? What you think biofeedback or RIFE or scalar bioresonance, call it whatever we want. There's a way to tap in. You can use it for remote viewing, but you can actually use those waves energetically, electronically. You can use it magnetically through light and sound and do all sorts of things. So I love the Tesla part of it. I love working with crystals and herbs and oils and all that. But one of the things is we look at your new website, which is really juicy, by the way. So I'm showing everyone here your richardallenmiller.com, because you have a new thing that's also called the Daily Conspiracy, which
there you'll find the possibilities of what's happening every day going on.
Right.
And look at just today and the amount of different things that are going on in the world besides deportation. Well, it's the different earthquakes that are going on across the world, the fact that food is limited here and living off the grid. Mm-hmm. I mean, the news every day now is starting to indicate, hello, wakey, wakey. And I'm going to suggest you have a go bag, because you may be discussing every location that I know of on Earth, including Telluride, has good things, bad things, mm-hmm. and unknowns. In other words, even with the best of sciences, I have no idea what's really going to happen. The chances of me surviving in the eastern side of the Cascades over the western side of the Cascades, that's pretty well reasonable, because the western side gets down below zero, where the eastern side is a little easier on weather. But that might change too. See, we don't know. We can guess, and then you can try to guess best things, because I-5 is going right down through the middle of Seattle.
Well, it was interesting because you and I talked with someone that was in the intelligence division, which it has to remain confidential, classified for sure. But in here, I am always amazed at how much information is compartmentalized. So even for what you know or I know or a little bit, or putting someone there, the compartmentalization is no one has the whole picture. And what's happening, in their area, they said, it's gorgeous. We got blue skies. And I'm going, what are you talking about? I said, I've had 4 days clear in 2 months where I've been able to even see the sky or blue or cloud. It's been in haze, blue fog, pink fog. We've got multiple explosions here throughout the Kootenays and Slocan, going into the Okanagan, literally as high as being up to a 3.5 earthquake, right, in the Okanagan. But when you're getting shaking, and my friends go out, at 1 a.m. to do some, yard burning, and they see blue flashes that you might as well think it's daylight. We know we've been hit with radiation stuff. People are ill. It's affecting people. We were in an area where there was direct energy fires that were put to us. I'm not that, you and I both know what's going on. We both have intelligence clearance.
Well, maybe we know what's going on, because there's nothing that survives written.
Oh, so exactly.
We don't have what happened historically.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look in these things, and whether I look at the future map or I love to look at Zeta Talk still, I get a kick out of everything. Whether you look at the future Navy map or anyone's you're looking in here.
Yellowstone, you know that when Yellowstone goes, there's going to be a gigantic hole around Montana, Idaho, and Colorado. You know that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these are things that have happened before. And we can track that. I always people go, oh, what's going on? I said, what, you can't actually see this? Like, this is insane, because you can actually see where it's tracking. I mean, this is notable. There's like 4 things, I've been aware of this for 15, 20 years when I was on the Basis Project and Project Ascension. I mean, my gosh, that goes back 10, 15 years. Like, how do people miss this stuff? But as I said, when you're talking about what goes off on, and I just put up there about all the different, there's Hanford up there. We've got nuclear facilities that are, been leaking on and off. We have got those volcanoes, Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, Mount Shasta, all of those ones you were talking about. There's been spewing ash. And now we've got areas even in California where you've had up to a couple hundred little mini quakes. So there's obviously Mama Earth is like expanding, it's doing what it has to do, but we need to be in alignment with that. And I think one of the most important things that you bring to the table, and as we go back and we look at your different books that you've written, which are massive, right? You have written so many books, and I know you would really like someone to help you put together if someone's in the Oregon area to get a hold of you, because you really could use some help putting together some of these different things. You got 147, almost 150 manuscripts.
I have no idea.
And he's probably done at least that, right?
Yeah, I've been writing for a long time. The thing that concerns me now is what's happening with our children.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't have any kind of an event, within 4 generations of the high school kids, we're going to be back to the Stone Age if we continue using the AI to dumb down our children. And they come out of the womb smarter than we are. And where we're not smarter than the children, we're more knowledgeable of what we do and what we don't want to do. But that's a learning process, and it's different for each of us, and knowledge is not wisdom.
Correct.
And that's the other part of what I'm concerned about, is that our children are completely unprepared for where you or I might know how to do some kind of minor farming. Children have no clue. And while we might teach them gardening is not going to produce the 40% of the food they consume, and the rest they can use to barter with other communities that have products that we don't have that I need, like a pineapple or a banana.
You and I were talking earlier, right? Is the idea of even the concept. And basically in 2010 till about 2014, 15, I went right off the grid. I didn't have a bank card. I didn't even have a cell phone. I had no idea. I left when there were flip phones. I shut down my office and said, that's it. I'm going out to the Kootenays and I'm going to find a safe place for children, for my children, right? So I was the barter queen out here, let me tell you. So, and then slowly as we've done that, as we looked at stuff here, now we're seeing a change in the environment, and that was one of the first things they did, is start getting, well, I was right about the silver. Here it goes. Like, it's over about 140 an ounce Canadian. It's well over.
That may be one of the reasons, by the way, that Trump is so interested in Greenland. It's got the largest silver deposit in the world. But just keep going. Yeah, keep going, and more and more and more.
There's more and more and more. That's basically what I wanted to get you guys to do, is take a look at Dr. Miller's site, because there's food, there's water, there's security, there's stuff you train, even just to keep into a positive thing. But I think that's really an interesting point, because I was looking at actually some of this stuff, and of course, having been, I still am a clan mother, but learning all about what sovereignty is. It's over the public, over the private, and over the inhabitants, like the 3 other different classifications of, legal determinations. I always loved it when Peter Berger from ACIO, right, military intelligence, says, you're not a Canadian. I said, hallelujah, thank you, man. I've been telling you forever. And so one of the things, though, is that we know about what has been going on. And this thing with Greenland and silver, I know I'm in the Kootenays here at Sandon, still operational silver mine, copper mines out here, gold mines. That's why they set us all on fire above Nelson Q552 base. Thank you very much. So one of the things, though, with Greenland, what you're bringing up, which is really amazing, I was looking at some of the stuff on my Twitter, and you and I are both friends on Facebook, but on Twitter, and a long time, as people thought sovereignist or whatever, teaching like, basically the David Wynn Miller sort of Parsi syntax and stuff like that, which I always laughed, because they said it doesn't matter. As you said, everything was oral, it wasn't written, and it was never in English. I don't care if it was English to British, it doesn't matter. It's not an original language. I don't care about it. But when you say like, hey, hey, ho, Yahweh, hey, yo, in our Bear Clan, we have our own languages. Thank you very much. And our Tartarian Bear Clan languages. One of the things that's interesting with David Wynn Miller, what he was saying, and this goes back like 10, 15 years ago, is that there are underground facilities. And of course, I watched JD Vance last year get rid of one of the, top brass there in the old Thule base in Greenland, or Piftif now. So what are your thoughts on Greenland, the ley lines, what's underneath, and not just the resource?
There's indication that there's an artifact in Greenland that supersedes the flood.
Yeah.
And that artifact may or not be what is motivating Trump regarding Greenland, which is quite different than Venezuela. Venezuela is more like when Noriega was a criminal and they went in and got him. It didn't matter where he was.
Right.
This is different.
How so?
Now, well, Greenland has a lot of resources. Well, maybe that might be one of the things, but I think it's the silver. I think it's the minerals, and maybe something that I don't know, like the artifact. And I don't know what that artifact is.
Well, as I've known people to go in here, I always laugh, like, because they're using a lot of these kind of things like an old
You
Arcturian
don't know
story.
if that's real, though.
But I saw that being used by Sergeant Patty Broussard from the U.S. Army like 15 years ago when we were at Project Ascension. That was one that they always told me was down actually by Abbotsford Scott, that this was thawing out there. So this one's been shown to me from being in Antarctica at the South Pole. I mean, that's something, and I mean, who knows, it could have been made up then and made up now, but you can go to our Project Ascension, and now they're trying to suggest this is the big thing that's covering like half of Greenland underneath there. So, I mean, as you were saying, AI, who knows what's real and what's not. But David Wynn Miller, the interesting thing is he starts going back and he starts talking about a lot of this from like, all these years ago. So that's something that like when you go into here and just listen to this for a sec here.
For those of you that don't know, there is a spacecraft that has melted out of the ice in Greenland. As you know, the North Pole has melted completely. You can go from London to Moscow or to Russia by going over the North Pole now. All the ice cap is gone.
So he brings up the ice walls too.
The last place that has ice on it was Greenland.
Now, one of the interesting things is we know all the maps have been screwed up. So when we don't even get into the Metacar maps and all that. But I'm up here. And so as you think, as they think Canada, which I always laugh because that's only the 12 navigable waters on the outside before you get into international waters. People don't even know what the definitions are here, right? Where Claremothers have land title. That's why I'm going to be working with some of the Choctaw chiefs, the original hereditary chiefs, and Chief Michael is actually noticing things like this because there were original trusts that belonged to the original Star Nations, of which our bloodlines are hereditaries to. But that means we get to inherit it. But no one's actually ever claimed some of these crown trusts ever. And this is stuff that was set aside when they came over here to do business, their 60-40 split. That's why I really would like to have a little discussion there with the Bank of England, the Bank of Canada, Federal Reserve, and maybe go for their Illuminati clan mothers, and talk to Melania Trump or something. Where is all this stuff being held to that they are trying to utilize or co-opt that belong to other people?
You can only speculate.
Again, when you start looking at some of this, and I did a really incredible show actually on some of this. I don't know. I don't think I sent it to you, but I will. Because one of the things that I went back and did is on here is I started looking at one of the ones just to get the information on. And a lot of people, like, they just don't know this information, and it's quite sad because there is so much that could be available to people that they're not picking up on. And one of the things here, I just made a whole playlist because people are literally, I don't want to say clueless, but they are very ignorant, they're not smart, or they could be manipulated in there. But what's happening is that they literally have ignored the information. They have ignored the creator's laws. They have ignored the original treaties. Our treaties are literally on obelisks that go back to Cleopatra and in Greek, Coptic Greek, and a lot of, Coptic languages and Kemetic languages that and can decode. That very few people are. People don't realize that you're actually one of the original decoders. And one of the ones I just wanted to show you, I've done a bunch of shows with Rick as well, but one of the ones I wanted to show you was this one I did here. It's called All Above Canada, USA, and the Signatories and the Tribes. And even knowing the maps, most people have no idea about the mapping system that was done here. And Winston Shrout, a bunch of them show that it's actually the perimeter outside, and that includes Canada and the States. That whole perimeter is actually what this is and how the Crown set these up with the 60-40 splits. So I put a whole bunch of information just together for people on my channel because they are missing this. I did an entire playlist, not only on Frequency Fridays, which I have, and healing, and talk about radiation. Marcus Rothkrantz also talks a lot about it. He was a consultant to the military on that. It'd be great to do a show with him. But there are tons of different things that people have no idea. this whole thing about even sovereignty law and food security that you're talking about, this is our inherent right. You know, people don't realize what's going on. How do we come together and mend this hoop, or even know the laws and actually claim this stuff that's been sitting in trust there for thousands of years for us? So I just want to get some thoughts there and see what we could do and maybe put our heads together. And I really
You've
like
done
what
an amazing job. I'm impressed. I came from, well, that's why it's all compartmentalized. You did that, I did that, who do that. What's needed now is the big picture. That candidly, I'm not sure any of us are going to be there until the last moment.
Well, you know, a lot of us some do. And that's why I got into, like with Ryan Williams, like doing all the biofields and looking at people's energies and looking at the fields and looking at the live blood cell and putting the microscopes, because I'm so sick and tired of people using PMF, inappropriate RIFE things. They don't even know the languages of the terminology. They're giving people all these supplements like nanosilvers, golds, more drugs, more pharmacology, more methylene blue, more all this. They don't know anything holistic. And that's why I appreciate the plethora of everything you have put out and what you want to do with for the children, the legacies for your Oak Institute. And I support that 110%.
Yeah, and imagine what a high school kid that's been working with his AI,
and with my children,
that doesn't work, and then he's hungry.
My children, I have that thing back to, I'm, Tartarian with this white bear and the whole Siberian stuff, but, as people think Russian or whatever. But in here, our Babas were the ones that did saving. My Baba passed that from her Baba to Vedmas, just like the Anastasia ringing seers of Russia. And we need to go back to that. Like I have here seed saving. I'm going to be moving here because I'm going to a no 5
Did you know though that Vancouver, BC is the only one of the very few places in North America that literally produces 40% of the food they consume right there in the town?
You know why? A bunch of my friends, I was out there 10, 15 years ago. You know why? Because they've got what's called guerrilla gardening. And a lot of my friends set up all the community gardens and stuff like that, and food and safety security. So I've been involved in this for a long time, not only on Vancouver Island, but that's why I'm out here in the community.
One of the rare places, it takes care of all of it. And
well, we've got about a minute left. We have about a minute left. How to get a hold of you? What's your what's your parting words of wisdom?
Talk about the other things we were going to cover.
Well, we can do a part 2 right now if you want. That's fine.
Yes, I love working with you anyway.
I love doing
it. Well, you do good graphics. I mean, you visually is how I am anyway. I've got a eidetic memory.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. There's so much in here, and I want to thank you. I've been like trying to get this coordinated, but as you can see, I've kind of broken a wrist out of some stuff too.
And then me there.
I know, but this is also like, like I said, overheat, but also in proximity to people that are transmitting and radiation, giving us acute radiation. That's part of what this is. So I'm very much about helping people and getting them healing. Most people don't have the tools I have back here, and I'm so grateful to have that. So we're going to see you guys in a part 2. You can get a hold of me, Karenann MacDonald, and you can get a hold
maybe this week later.
Dr. Miller. We are going to get a hold of him